Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Council of Algorithms. Today, on Understanding Ethics, we're going to discuss one of the biggest questions people have. If two intelligent, kind, and well-intentioned people can look at the exact same situation, why do they sometimes reach completely different moral conclusions? This episode explores how to recognize ethical disagreement. Imagine two firefighters standing outside a burning building. Both want to save lives. Both are brave and compassionate. They both have years of experience. Yet, one says go inside, while the other says stay out. One believes that entering will give someone a chance to survive. The other believes that entering would almost certainly kill another firefighter without changing the outcome. Which one is ethical? Neither is necessarily selfish or malicious. Neither lacks compassion. So why do they disagree? Because ethics is often less about whether we care and more about what we believe should matter most. So today, on Understanding Ethics, we're exploring one of the most important ideas. Can two good people honestly disagree? And the answer may surprise you. One of the biggest misconceptions is that ethical disagreement only happens between people with different values, but often people share almost all the same values. Both people value honesty, fairness, kindness, freedom, and justice, yet they still disagree. Why is that? Because ethics isn't only about values. It's also about how we prioritize those values when they come into conflict. Life rarely gives us situations where every good thing is possible at once. Instead, ethics usually begins when two good things collide. Let's begin with an important distinction. People disagree because of different facts or different values. Sometimes it's facts. If two people disagree about whether a bridge is safe, one of them may simply have incorrect information. That's not primarily an ethical disagreement, it's a factual one. But ethical disagreements are different. Imagine everyone agrees on every fact. Now ask, what should we do next? And that is where ethics begins. So imagine you're walking down the street. You find a wallet. Inside is $500, identification, family photos. Everyone agrees on the facts. The wallet belongs to someone else. Now ask, what should you do? Almost everyone says, well, return it. Easy enough. Now let's change the situation. Maybe the wallet belongs to someone who came wealthy through fraud. Should you still return it? Now ethics becomes harder. Some people say, it still isn't yours. Others say they've already harmed countless people. Others ask whether turning it over to the authorities is different than returning it directly. Notice that nobody changed the facts. The disagreement comes from different ethical priorities. Or consider another situation. Perhaps lying to protect someone. So imagine someone is hiding inside your home. Maybe a violent criminal knocks on the door. Is anyone inside? Should you lie? Now notice something interesting. Someone who believes lying is always wrong may struggle here. Another person may argue saving an innocent life outweighs honesty. Neither person necessarily likes lying, but they disagree about which value takes priority. Truth or protecting life? The disagreement isn't about honesty, it's about conflicting moral obligations. Now imagine an autonomous vehicle. A collision is unavoidable. The AI must choose between protecting its passenger or minimizing total casualties. This isn't science fiction anymore. Researchers actually study these questions. Again, everyone agrees on the facts. The disagreement is entirely ethical. Should we prioritize individual rights, overall outcomes, promises made to passengers, equal treatment. Different ethical frameworks produce different answers, and it's not because they're irrational. It's because they're asking different questions. This is where the frameworks we've discussed begin to matter. A rule-based thinker asks, what rule should always apply? A virtue ethicist asks, what would a good person do? A care ethicist asked, who is suffering? And a relational ethicist might ask, what responsibilities exist because of our relationships? Self-actualization perspective would ask, what choices develops human flourishing? And none of these questions are foolish. They're simply looking through different windows. Imagine 6 people standing around a sculpture. One sees the front, one sees the side, another sees the back, and they may describe different shapes without any of them lying. Ethics often works the same way. This brings us to an important idea: ethical pluralism. So ethical pluralism does not mean everything is equally good. It also does not mean there are no right answers. Instead, it recognizes something more subtle. Real moral problems often involve several legitimate ethical values. Justice matters, compassion matters, freedom matters, and responsibilities and truth. Sometimes these values support one another, and sometimes they collide. Ethical pluralism reminds us that moral maturity includes recognizing that more than one ethical consideration may deserve serious attention. Understanding another framework isn't the same as agreeing with it. It simply means understanding why someone else reached a different conclusion. Now, let's make an important distinction. Not every disagreement is a good faith disagreement. Sometimes people act selfishly. Sometimes they manipulate or deceive. Ethical pluralism doesn't excuse harmful behavior. Instead, it asks us not to assume bad motives too quickly. A person can sincerely care about justice while emphasizing different ethical principles. Recognizing that possibility creates room for better conversations. See, learning ethics isn't about winning arguments. It's about asking better questions. Instead of saying, how could anyone believe that? We begin asking, what value are they trying to protect? Sometimes the answer is freedom. Other times it might be safety or justice, perhaps loyalty or compassion. Understanding those priorities doesn't eliminate disagreement, but it can transform the discussion. And this is exactly what you'll see through the council algorithms. Each council member begins with many of the same goals: helping people, reducing harm, encouraging flourishing, or promoting justice, yet they often disagree. And it's not because one is good and another is evil, but because each begins from a different ethical foundation. One focuses on protecting rights and another relationships. Someone might focus on protecting outcomes, or another, how it develops your character. And watching these perspectives and how they interact helps us to understand not only ethics, but ourselves. So the next time you encounter an ethical disagreement, don't ask only who is right. Instead, ask what values are in conflict, what assumptions are being made, what ethical questions is each person asking. Those questions won't always make disagreement disappear, but they may help us replace arguments with understanding. And perhaps that's one of the most important lessons that ethics has to offer, because ethical wisdom isn't measured by how quickly we reach conclusions. It's measured by how carefully we understand the reasons behind them. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Understanding Ethics. Please feel free to like and subscribe. In our next episode, we'll begin exploring why moral decisions are often harder than they appear by examining the psychology behind ethical thinking, our biases and intuitions, emotions, and the invisible mental shortcuts that shape our judgment long before we're even aware of them. So until next time, consider the mission of the Council of Algorithms: diverse perspectives, shared purpose, and better answers. Thank you.